The glowing screen of her phone illuminated Jessica Parker's tired face as her trembling fingers typed out the message. "I can't do this anymore. The baby is coming, and I'm all alone." She pressed send before she could change her mind, then tossed her phone onto the passenger seat. The late October rain pelted against her windshield as she navigated the dark streets of Boston, each contraction growing stronger than the last. Jessica was 28, single and about to become a mother. The father of her child had disappeared months ago, leaving her with nothing but empty promises and a broken heart. What Jessica didn't realize was that in her panic and pain, she had sent the message to the wrong Michael. Instead of reaching her unreliable ex-boyfriend, Michael Donovan, the desperate text had gone to Michael Blackwood, the intimidating CEO of Blackwood Publishing, where she worked as a junior editor. She had saved his contact information after a company-wide email about quarterly goals, never imagining she would accidentally message him during the most vulnerable moment of her life. Michael Blackwood was reviewing quarterly reports in his penthouse when his phone buzzed. The 40-year-old executive frowned at the unfamiliar number and the startling message. He recognized the name, Jessica Parker, a promising editor who had joined the company 8 months ago. Michael had noticed her sharp editing skills and dedication, but they had exchanged fewer than a dozen words in person. He had no idea she was pregnant, much less about to give birth. He stared at the message, unsure how to respond or if he should respond at all. Meanwhile, Jessica pulled into the hospital parking lot, just as another contraction hit, nearly doubling her over the steering wheel. She grabbed her hastily packed overnight bag and hurried through the rain toward the emergency entrance, not bothering to check if her ex had responded. It didn't matter anymore. She had stopped expecting Michael Donovan to step up months ago. The hospital staff rushed Jessica to the maternity ward, her labor progressing faster than expected for a first-time mother. Between contractions, she managed to give the intake nurse her information. "Emergency contact?" the nurse asked. Jessica hesitated. Her parents lived in Arizona and wouldn't arrive until tomorrow. Her closest friend was out of the country on her honeymoon. "There's no one," Jessica admitted, tears mixing with sweat on her face. The nurse gave her a sympathetic pat on the shoulder and continued with the admission process. Back in his penthouse, Michael Blackwood couldn't shake the troubling message from his mind. Something about the raw desperation in those few words bothered him. As CEO of a company with over 300 employees, he prided himself on maintaining a professional distance. But this felt different. This wasn't a work matter. This was a human being in crisis. After 20 minutes of internal debate, he texted back, "Is everything all right? Do you need help?" When no response came, his concern grew. On a hunch, Michael called his assistant, Vanessa, who was working late. "Vanessa, what do you know about Jessica Parker from the editing department?" Bright young editor came highly recommended from Berkeley Publishing. "Keeps to herself mostly, but her work is exceptional," Vanessa replied. "Why do you ask?" "Is she pregnant?" Michael asked bluntly. There was a pause on the line. "Yes, actually. I believe she's due very soon. People have been quietly collecting for a baby gift. Is there a problem?" Michael explained the mysterious text. "I think she might have sent it to me by mistake, but I'm concerned. She mentioned being alone and the baby coming. That doesn't sound good," Vanessa agreed. "Should I try calling her?" "No, I'll handle it," Michael said, already grabbing his keys. "Send me a list of hospitals within 20 miles of the office. If she's in labor, she's likely at one of them." As Michael drove through the rain-slicked streets, Jessica was fighting through the final stages of labor. After 6 grueling hours, the cry of a healthy baby girl filled the delivery room. "She's perfect," the doctor announced, placing the squirming newborn on Jessica's chest. Exhausted, but overwhelmed with love, Jessica stared into her daughter's face. "Hello, Lily," she whispered, the name she had chosen months ago. While Jessica was meeting her daughter for the first time, Michael Blackwood was at the 4th hospital on his list, Boston Memorial. "I'm trying to find information about a Jessica Parker," he told the receptionist. "She's an employee of mine, and I received a concerning message that she might be in labor." The receptionist checked her computer. "Yes, Ms. Parker was admitted earlier this evening. She's in the maternity ward." She looked up at Michael with a smile. "Congratulations. It appears she delivered a healthy baby girl about 30 minutes ago." Michael blinked in surprise. "Thank you, but I'm not—" He stopped himself. "What room is she in?" Room 304, but visiting hours are over except for immediate family, the receptionist said. Michael straightened his tie. I'm her emergency contact, he lied smoothly. The receptionist nodded and buzzed him through. Standing outside room 304, Michael hesitated. What was he doing here? This woman was practically a stranger. He had crossed professional boundaries and inserted himself into an intensely private situation. He was about to turn away when he heard a soft cry from inside the room. Not a baby's cry, but a woman's muffled sob. Before he could reconsider, Michael knocked gently on the door. After a moment, a tired voice called, "Come in." Jessica looked up, expecting a nurse, and froze in shock when Michael Blackwood stepped into her hospital room. Her hair was a mess, her face pale with exhaustion, and her eyes red from crying. The baby was sleeping in a clear bassinet beside her bed. "Mr. Blackwood," Jessica's voice was barely audible. "What are you doing here?" Michael stood awkwardly by the door. "You sent me a text earlier. I think it was meant for someone else, but I was concerned when you didn't respond." Jessica's eyes widened as realization dawned. "Oh my God," she whispered, mortification washing over her. "I'm so sorry. I meant to text my ex." "I figured as much," Michael said gently. "Are you all right? Is there someone I can call for you?" Jessica looked away, embarrassment giving way to another wave of sadness. "No, there's no one. My parents are flying in tomorrow, but—" Her voice trailed off. An uncomfortable silence filled the room until a small whimper came from the bassinet. Jessica reached for her daughter, wincing slightly from the movement. "May I?" Michael asked, gesturing toward the bassinet. After Jessica's surprised nod, he carefully lifted the newborn and handed her to her mother. The tenderness in his movements was unexpected from a man known for his ruthless business acumen. "She's beautiful," Michael said softly. "What's her name?" "Lily," Jessica replied, watching her boss with confusion. "Lily Grace Parker." Michael nodded, seeming to make a decision. "Ms. Parker, Jessica, I know this is unusual, but would you allow me to help? Not as your employer, but as someone who—" He paused, searching for the right words. "As someone who believes no one should be alone at a time like this." Jessica stared at him, trying to reconcile this compassionate man with the intimidating CEO she had glimpsed from afar. Before she could respond, a nurse entered the room. "Oh, you must be the father," the nurse said cheerfully to Michael. "The hospital needs some information for the birth certificate." Jessica opened her mouth to correct the misunderstanding, but Michael caught her eye with a look that somehow conveyed both question and reassurance. In that moment, something shifted between them, an unspoken agreement, a bridge across the chasm of their different lives. Neither of them could have predicted how that mistaken text would change everything, setting in motion events that would intertwine their lives in ways neither had imagined possible. The following morning, Jessica woke to the soft sounds of her daughter's breathing. For a moment she wondered if Michael Blackwood's unexpected visit had been a dream, a bizarre hallucination brought on by exhaustion and hormones. But then she noticed the large arrangement of pink and white flowers on the windowsill that hadn't been there before, along with a small teddy bear wearing a t-shirt that read, "Welcome to the world, Lily." The card simply said, "Call if you need anything. MB," followed by a personal cell phone number. Jessica sank back against her pillows, mortification washing over her again. Of all the people to accidentally text during labor, she had messaged the formidable CEO of Blackwood Publishing, a man known for his exacting standards and cool demeanor. She had only interacted with him directly once during her initial interview, when he had unexpectedly stepped in to ask a few pointed questions about her editorial philosophy. Since then, she had admired him from afar, impressed by his business acumen and the respect he commanded. Her phone buzzed with a text from her parents. Their flight would land in 3 hours. Jessica felt a wave of relief, knowing they would be with her soon, helping her navigate these first overwhelming days of motherhood. She hadn't told them about Michael Donovan's abandonment, instead letting them believe the relationship had simply fizzled out. The truth was too painful, too humiliating to share, that he had coldly informed her he wasn't father material, and suggested taking care of the problem before disappearing from her life completely. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. A nurse entered, followed by Dr. Warner, who had delivered Lily. "Good morning, new mama," Dr. Warner said warmly. "How are you feeling today?" Sore, tired, overwhelmed, Jessica admitted. But good, doctor. Warner checked Jessica's vital signs and examined the incision from the emergency C-section they had performed when Lily's heart rate had suddenly dropped during the final stages of labor. Everything looks good, but I'm a bit concerned about your blood pressure. It's still elevated, Dr. Warner said. I'd like to keep you an extra day for monitoring just to be safe. Jessica nodded, trying to hide her anxiety. Another day in the hospital meant additional costs her insurance might not cover, but her daughter's health came first. Your husband seemed very concerned last night, the doctor continued. He asked about postpartum care and what to expect in these first weeks. It's wonderful to see such an involved father. Jessica opened her mouth to correct the misunderstanding, but hesitated. The thought of explaining the complicated truth was exhausting. Before she could respond, her phone rang, her mother calling from a taxi from the airport. After the doctor left, Jessica tried to feed Lily, struggling to get her to latch properly. Tears of frustration were streaming down her face when another knock came at the door. Jessica hurriedly wiped her eyes. Come in. Michael Blackwood stood in the doorway, looking more casual than she had ever seen him in dark jeans and a grey sweater, rather than his usual impeccable suit. He carried a large gift bag and what appeared to be a takeout container. I hope I'm not intruding, he said, his voice gentler than it ever was at the office. I brought you some real food. Hospital cuisine leaves much to be desired. Jessica stared at him, acutely aware of her disheveled appearance and the tears still damp on her cheeks. You didn't have to do that, she managed. Michael set the food on the rolling table and moved it toward her bed. It's just soup and a sandwich from Westfield Cafe, nothing fancy. He glanced at Lily, who was still fussing at Jessica's breast. Is everything all right? Jessica felt her face flush with embarrassment. I'm having trouble. She won't... Fresh tears threatened. To her surprise, Michael didn't look uncomfortable or flee the room. Instead, he calmly took a seat in the visitor's chair. My sister has 3 children, he said. She struggled with breastfeeding too, especially with her first. The lactation consultant showed her a different position that worked better. Jessica looked at him in disbelief. This was not a conversation she had ever imagined having with her boss. The lactation consultant isn't available until this afternoon. Michael pulled out his phone. Let me call my sister. She might have some advice. Before Jessica could protest, he was speaking to his sister, explaining the situation with surprising ease. After a brief conversation, he turned back to Jessica. She suggests trying the football hold position. May I? He held out his hands for Lily. Something about his calm confidence made Jessica hand over her daughter. Michael carefully cradled Lily, then demonstrated how to position her. Like this, tucked under your arm like a football, with her feet toward your back and her head supported in your hand. Jessica followed his instructions, adjusting until Lily was positioned correctly. To her amazement, Lily latched immediately. It worked, she whispered, looking up at Michael with gratitude. Thank you. Michael smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually serious face. My sister will be pleased her advice helped. He turned away slightly to give Jessica privacy while she fed her daughter. Mr. Blackwood, Jessica began hesitantly. Michael, please, he interrupted. I think we're well past formalities at this point. Jessica nodded. Michael, I want to apologize again for the text. And thank you for coming to check on me last night. That was an unexpected. Michael was quiet for a moment. We all need help sometimes, he finally said. Even those of us who are used to handling everything alone. Something in his tone suggested he was speaking from experience. Still, you're my boss. This isn't exactly in your job description. Michael leaned forward slightly. Right now, I'm just a person helping another person. The company hierarchy doesn't apply here. Jessica studied him, wondering about the man behind the executive facade. Why did you really come last night? You could have just called the hospital to check if I was okay. Michael seemed to consider his answer carefully. Your message said you were alone. No one should be alone during something like that. He paused. And perhaps I understand more than you might think about facing important moments without support. Before Jessica could ask what he meant, the door opened again. An older couple rushed in, her parents, Alan and Barbara Parker, having arrived earlier than expected. Jessie, her mother exclaimed, hurrying to the bedside. She stopped short when she noticed Michael. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't realize you had a visitor. Michael stood, extending his hand. Michael Blackwood. I work with Jessica. Barbara shook his hand, confusion evident on her face. Nice to meet you. I'm Barbara, Jessica's mother, and this is her father, Alan. An awkward silence fell over the room. Jessica could see the questions forming in her mother's eyes. Why was Jessica's boss visiting her in the hospital? Why had the nurses referred to him as the father when they had pointed them to Jessica's room? Michael brought me some lunch, Jessica explained weakly, and helped with a feeding issue. Alan's eyebrows shot up. That's very kind of you, Mr. Blackwood. Michael handled the situation with diplomatic ease. Jessica is a valued member of our team at Blackwood Publishing. We take care of our own. He retrieved his coat. I should be going. You'll want family time. He turned to Jessica. Take all the time you need for maternity leave. Your job will be waiting when you're ready to return. As he headed for the door, Jessica called after him. Michael. He turned back. Thank you for everything. He nodded once, then left the room. Barbara immediately turned to her daughter. Jessica Claire Parker, what is going on? The nurse said your husband had been here all night, and now your boss shows up with lunch and helping with breastfeeding. And where is Michael, the baby's father? Jessica closed her eyes briefly, the weight of everything crashing down. It's complicated, Mum. Uncomplicate it for us, her father said, his voice gentle but firm. Over the next hour, Jessica told her parents everything. About Donovan abandoning her, about accidentally texting her boss, about Michael Blackwood showing up at the hospital and being mistaken for Lily's father. By the end, Barbara was wiping away tears, and Alan's jaw was clenched in anger toward the man who had abandoned his daughter. So this CEO, he just came to check on you? Barbara asked. That seems unusual. Everything about this situation is unusual, Mum, Jessica sighed. But he was kind when he didn't have to be. Alan was still processing. What kind of man doesn't stand by the mother of his child? He muttered. If I ever meet this Donovan character, you won't, Jessica said firmly. He made his choice. Lily and I will be fine without him. Later that evening, after her parents had gone to their hotel promising to return first thing in the morning, Jessica received a text from Michael. Is there anything you need that I can bring tomorrow? My sister suggested nursing tops might be helpful. Jessica smiled at the unexpected thoughtfulness. She hesitated, then replied, That's very kind, but my parents are here now. I should be fine. Thank you again for everything. His response came quickly. Good to hear. Remember, the offer of help stands regardless of your parents' presence. This isn't just about professional courtesy. Jessica stared at those last words, wondering what exactly they meant. As she looked down at Lily sleeping peacefully in the hospital bassinet, she couldn't help but compare the two Michaels in her life. One who had run from responsibility, and one who had run towards someone in need, even when it wasn't his responsibility at all. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring or how she would face Michael Blackwood when she eventually returned to work. But for the first time since learning she was pregnant, Jessica felt like maybe, just maybe, everything might turn out all right. 6 weeks after Lily's birth, Jessica stood in front of her bathroom mirror, smoothing her blouse and scrutinizing her reflection. Today marked her first day back at Blackwood Publishing, and her stomach churned with anxiety. Her parents had returned to Arizona 2 weeks ago, leaving her to navigate new motherhood alone. Though they had offered to stay longer or have her move back home with them, Jessica had declined. Boston was her home now, and she was determined to make it work. She checked on Lily one last time before the babysitter arrived. The infant was sleeping peacefully, unaware of her mother's inner turmoil. Jessica had interviewed 5 different sitters before settling on Nancy, a retired nurse with decades of childcare experience. Still, leaving Lily felt like ripping off a limb. You can do this, Jessica whispered to herself as she gathered her purse and the breast pump she'd need during the day. Thousands of working mothers do this every day. When Jessica stepped off the elevator onto the editorial floor of Blackwood Publishing, several colleagues greeted her with warm smiles and congratulations. Her desk was decorated with balloons and a small gift basket. The normalcy of it all was comforting, as if her world hadn't completely transformed in the past few months. Jessica, welcome back. Tara, a fellow editor, enveloped her in a hug. We've missed you around here. How's the baby? She's perfect, Jessica smiled, pulling out her phone to show photos of Lily. She's gorgeous, Tara gushed. Those eyes, And that little dimple, Jessica beamed with pride. Thanks. It's been quite the adjustment, but we're figuring it out. Tara lowered her voice. So, any word from the father? Jessica tensed. Few people at work knew the full story of her situation. No, and I don't expect any. Tara squeezed her arm sympathetically. His loss. You're amazing, and that baby is lucky to have you. As Jessica settled at her desk, she tried not to think about the last time she had seen Michael Blackwood. He had visited the hospital once more before she was discharged, bringing a car seat that his sister had insisted was the safest model available. The gesture had left Jessica both touched and confused. Since then, their communication had been limited to a few professional emails about her return to work. Jessica had just opened her first manuscript of the day when her phone buzzed with a text from Nancy. Lily won't take the bottle. She's been crying for 30 minutes. Any suggestions? A wave of panic washed over Jessica. She had practiced bottle feeding with Lily, but the baby had been inconsistent in her acceptance. Before she could respond, a shadow fell across her desk. Looking up, she found Michael Blackwood standing there, as imposing in his tailored suit as he had been the day she interviewed. "Welcome back, Ms. Parker," he said, his voice professionally distant. "I hope you're settling in well." "Yes, thank you, Mr. Blackwood," Jessica replied, quickly locking her phone screen. "It's good to be back." Michael nodded. "I've adjusted your project load for the next few weeks. You'll be handling the Thompson manuscript exclusively until you're ready for more." "I appreciate that," Jessica said, surprised by the consideration. "My office at 2 to discuss your thoughts on it," he said, then walked away without waiting for a response. Jessica stared after him, puzzled by his return to formality after the personal connection they had shared in the hospital. It was as if those moments had never happened. By noon, Jessica was in the mother's room, pumping breast milk and frantically texting Nancy, who had finally gotten Lily to take the bottle after nearly 2 hours of resistance. The baby was now sleeping, exhausted from her protest. Jessica felt tears stinging her eyes. How was she supposed to focus on work when her heart was at home with her daughter? At 2 sharp, Jessica knocked on Michael's office door, manuscript notes in hand. "Come in," his deep voice called. Michael was standing by the window, gazing out at the Boston skyline. He turned as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Jessica," he said, using her first name despite their earlier formal exchange. "Please, sit." Jessica took a seat across from his desk, placing her notes between them. "I've reviewed the Thompson manuscript. It has potential, but the middle section drags considerably." Michael didn't sit or reach for her notes. Instead, he remained standing, studying her face. "You've been crying." Jessica blinked in surprise. No, I'm fine." "You're not fine," he stated simply. "What's wrong?" The direct question, asked with what seemed like genuine concern, broke through Jessica's carefully constructed professional facade. "Lily wouldn't take the bottle this morning," she admitted. "She cried for hours. The sitter finally got her to eat, but—" She trailed off, embarrassed by her emotional response. Michael's expression softened. "That must be difficult." "It is what it is," Jessica said, trying to regain her composure. "Many working mothers deal with this. Now about the manuscript—" "Jessica," Michael interrupted gently. "May I speak frankly?" She nodded, uncertain. "When my sister returned to work after having her first child, she was miserable for months," he said. "She tried to pretend everything was fine, that she could seamlessly transition back to her old life. It nearly broke her." Jessica swallowed hard. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that perhaps we need to reconsider your return to work plan." Michael moved to sit behind his desk. "What if you could work from home 3 days a week? You'd come in for necessary meetings, but otherwise manage your projects remotely." Jessica stared at him. Would that be possible?" "We've never had such an arrangement before," Michael admitted, "but there's always a first time. You're a valuable editor, Jessica. I'd rather accommodate your needs than lose your talent." "Why would you do this for me?" Jessica asked, the question that had been plaguing her for weeks finally escaping her lips. Michael was quiet for a long moment. "6 years ago, my wife died giving birth to our son," he said, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of pain. "He lived for 3 hours. I held them both as they slipped away." Jessica gasped softly. "Michael, I had no idea. I'm so sorry." "Few people know," he said. I don't discuss it. He looked directly at her. When I received your text that night, when I realized you were alone at such a critical moment, I couldn't not respond. The revelation stunned Jessica into silence. Suddenly, his appearance at the hospital, his gentle handling of Lily, his sister's advice about breastfeeding, it all made sense. This wasn't just professional courtesy or random kindness. This was a man who understood loss and isolation in a way few others could. I didn't mean to burden you with my history, Michael continued when she didn't speak. I simply wanted you to understand that my offer comes from a place of genuine concern, not corporate strategy. Jessica nodded, still processing this new information. Thank you for telling me, and for the offer. I'd like to try the arrangement if you're serious. I am, he confirmed. We'll start next week. For the remainder of this week, wrap up what you need to here and prepare to work from home. Relief washed over Jessica. Thank you, Michael. This means more than I can express. As she stood to leave, Michael spoke again. Jessica, there's something else. He hesitated, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. I received a letter yesterday addressed to the company. It was from Michael Donovan. Jessica froze, her hand gripping the back of the chair. What? Why would he contact Blackwood Publishing? It seems he's been trying to reach you. Your number is changed, and your old apartment has new tenants. He tracked you to your employer. Michael's jaw tightened. He claims he wants to meet his daughter. The room seemed to tilt around Jessica. After 6 months of silence, after telling me to take care of the problem, now he wants to play daddy? You don't have to see him, Michael said firmly. You owe him nothing. What did the letter say exactly? Jessica asked, her voice shaking slightly. Michael reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. Read it yourself, I haven't responded. Jessica took the letter, her fingers trembling. Michael Donovan's handwriting was as familiar as it was now unwelcome. The letter was brief, expressing regret for his hasty reaction, and claiming he had been searching his soul during his months away. He wanted to meet Lily and discuss support arrangements. Support arrangements, Jessica repeated bitterly. Now that she's here healthy and real, he wants to swoop in and play the hero. She looked up at Michael. What do you think I should do? Michael leaned back in his chair. That's not for me to say, but I will offer this observation. Sometimes people deserve second chances, and sometimes they don't. Jessica folded the letter and slipped it into her pocket. I need time to think about this. Take all the time you need, Michael said. And Jessica, whatever you decide, you're not alone in this anymore. The words hung between them, laden with meaning beyond professional support. For the first time since Lily's birth, Jessica felt a flutter of something other than anxiety or exhaustion, something warm and unexpected that made her breath catch. That evening, as Jessica rocked Lily to sleep, her thoughts kept returning to Michael Blackwood, to his revelation, his kindness, his unexpected support. The Michael she was coming to know was vastly different from the intimidating CEO she had once feared. And as for the other Michael, the one who had broken her heart and abandoned his child, she pulled out the letter again, reading it more carefully. Between the lines of Donovan's carefully worded apology, Jessica sensed calculation rather than genuine remorse. He mentioned legal rights and paternal claims, alongside his desire to meet Lily. The implicit threat was clear. If Jessica didn't cooperate, he might pursue other avenues to insert himself into their lives. Jessica's arms tightened protectively around her sleeping daughter. How quickly life could change. In 6 months, she had gone from a woman betrayed and alone to a mother fiercely determined to protect her child, with unexpected allies in her corner. Whatever Michael Donovan's true motives were, whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain. Jessica Parker was no longer facing them alone. 3 days later, Jessica sat in a quiet corner of Riverside Cafe, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. Across from her, Michael Donovan fidgeted with his napkin, his once familiar face now seeming like that of a stranger. She has your eyes, Jessica said finally, sliding a photo of Lily across the table. She had deliberately chosen to meet him without bringing her daughter. Whatever his intentions, Lily would not be part of this initial conversation. Michael picked up the photo, studying it with an expression Jessica couldn't quite read. She's beautiful, he murmured. Jessica, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but... You're right, she interrupted, her voice steady. You don't have any right. You made that choice when you walked away. He had the decency to look ashamed. I was scared, unprepared. I handled it terribly and I'm sorry. Why now? Jessica asked, the question that had kept her awake for nights. Why after all this time? Michael Donovan shifted uncomfortably. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About family, about responsibility. My brother just had a kid and seeing him with his son, he trailed off. I realized what I was missing, what I threw away. Jessica studied the man she had once thought she loved. His explanation sounded rehearsed, hollow. And the mentions of legal rights in your letter? Was that thinking about family too? His expression hardened slightly. I'm Lily's father. I have rights. Rights you forfeited when you suggested I take care of the problem, Jessica reminded him, her voice cold. Rights aren't just legal concepts, Michael. They're earned through presence, through care, through showing up when it matters. Before he could respond, Jessica's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced down to see a message from Michael Blackwood. Checking in, everything all right? A small smile touched her lips. Since their conversation in his office, Michael had been a steady presence in her life. Professional, yet personal, respectful of boundaries, yet unfailingly supportive. He had never pushed or presumed, simply offered quiet strength when she needed it most. Someone important? Donovan asked, noting her expression. Yes, Jessica said simply, returning her attention to him. Look, I won't keep Lily from knowing her father if you're genuinely committed to being in her life. But I need to know your true intentions. No games, no threats. Donovan's facade cracked slightly. I'm not the villain you're making me out to be. I panicked, yes, I made a terrible mistake, but I want to make it right. He leaned forward. And I've been thinking about us too, Jess. What we had was good. Maybe we could... No, Jessica cut him off firmly. That door is closed permanently. His expression darkened. Is there someone else? Jessica didn't answer directly. My priority is Lily. If you want to be in her life, we'll need a formal agreement. Visitation schedule, support payments, everything documented legally. You don't trust me, he observed. You haven't earned trust, she replied evenly, but I'm willing to give you the chance to build it, for Lily's sake. After Donovan left, Jessica remained at the cafe, emotions swirling. She picked up her phone and texted Michael Blackwood. Meeting finished. Could use a friend. 20 minutes later, Michael Blackwood walked through the cafe door, his tall figure commanding attention even in casual clothes. He spotted Jessica and made his way to her table, sliding into the seat across from her. How did it go? He asked without preamble. Jessica recounted the conversation, watching Michael's expression darken when she mentioned Donovan's suggestion about rekindling their relationship. And what will you do now? Michael asked when she finished. I'll have my lawyer draft a visitation and support agreement, Jessica said. Limited visits at first, supervised until he proves he can be consistent. Michael nodded. A sensible approach. He hesitated, then added, and about his other suggestion, Jessica met his gaze directly. As I told him, that door is closed permanently. Something shifted in Michael's eyes, relief perhaps, or something more. Jessica, he began, then stopped, seeming to search for words. Over these past weeks I've come to... I know, Jessica said softly. Me too. Their hands found each other across the table, a simple touch that somehow felt more intimate than any words could express. 6 months later, the autumn leaves had turned Boston into a canvas of red and gold. Jessica stood in her kitchen, preparing dinner while Lily played in her high chair, babbling happily as she explored a set of colorful blocks. The sound of a key in the lock made them both look up. "Da-da," Lily squealed, her favorite new word. Michael Blackwood entered, his serious work expression immediately melting into a warm smile at the sight of them. He hung his coat carefully and crossed to Lily, lifting her into his arms with practiced ease. "Hello, Princess," he murmured, kissing her chubby cheek. "Did you have a good day with Mama?" Jessica watched them, her heart full. The past year had brought changes she could never have imagined. Michael Donovan had kept his monthly visitations for about 3 months before his interest waned, and his visits became increasingly sporadic. His last cancellation had come with a job offer in Seattle and a request to modify the agreement to quarterly visits at best. Meanwhile, Michael Blackwood had become a constant in their lives, first as a supportive friend, then as something more. Their relationship had developed slowly, both of them careful not to rush given the complexities involved. But the connection between them had been undeniable from that first night in the hospital, a bond forged in crisis that had deepened into something genuine and lasting. "How was your meeting?" Jessica asked, as Michael came to kiss her, Lily still balanced on his hip. "Productive. The board approved the expansion," he replied, "but more importantly, I had a thought on the way home." He set Lily back in her high chair and reached into his pocket, producing a small velvet box. "This isn't how I planned to do this. I had elaborate ideas involving the place we first met properly, the hospital." Jessica laughed, tears already forming in her eyes. "But I realized," Michael continued, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring, "that the perfect moment isn't about location. It's about being with the people who make life worth living." He knelt beside her. "Jessica Parker, will you and Lily do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my family, officially, permanently, wonderfully?" Jessica looked from the ring to Michael's hopeful face to Lily, who was watching them with bright, curious eyes. Her daughter, who had inadvertently brought this remarkable man into their lives through a mistaken text message on a rainy night that seemed both yesterday and a lifetime ago. "Yes," Jessica whispered, her voice catching. "Yes to family. Yes to us." As Michael slipped the ring onto her finger and gathered both her and Lily into his embrace, Jessica marveled at life's unexpected turns, how the worst moments could lead to the best, how mistakes could become miracles, and how finding love could be as simple and as profound as sending a message to the right wrong person